done! It's the only way we can save Dory! I can do this!
You're right. I know you can.
Lucky Finn!
Now go! Hurry!
Tell all the fish to
Wasting your
swim
time,
now.
Nemo. Come on.
Well, you heard my son? Come on!
Dory, you have to tell everybody to swim.
Swim down together! Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Swim down!
Everybody swim down! Come on, you have to swim down! Swim down, okay?
Down! Swim down! Swim down! Swim down! Don't give up! Keep swimming! Just keep swimming! That's it!
It's working!
Just keep swimming! Keep swimming!
Come on, Dad!
You're doing great, son!
That's my dad!
Come on, let's get to the bottom! Keep
Wasting your time,
swimming.
Nemo.
Keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
Almost there! Keep swimming! Dory!
And now all the people have to starve. Nothing to eat. I know. That's the dark side of that story. You're like, yeah, free fish. You're like, what are we going to eat? The worst. And Dory and Nemo, not even doing anything. Freeloaders, just hanging out. They're like, yeah, swim harder. Keep going. I'll sit here and float in the net. Humble bragging. That's my dad. Nemo's the worst. I feel like I should clarify also, because after this, inevitably I will probably go home and my wife will be like, you're a little harsh. And I'll be like, that's probably true. Evan and Valerie get to come over to my house. I like Gracie most days, and Carson's a distant relative. Okay, I'm not going to chop any of them up unless they make me very angry. It's going to be okay. It's going to be good. Cool? We good? Okay, you looked very sad earlier, so I wanted to clarify for you. We're going to be in 1 Corinthians tonight, in chapter 1, and I wanted to take you back into your childhood a little bit, my childhood in general. Back to Finding Nemo, pre-Finding Dory, which is a great movie, but I imagine a nightmare of an event. Like, Dory would be the worst person to find. At least Nemo's got like a grasp on things, even like pre-fish puberty. Dory's just like out there on another planet, always lost. Even when she knows she's lost. She's lost. And so, but we take you all the way back there, and not to go to the just keep swimming moment. As adorable and inspirational as that is, there's nothing that just makes you keep going than if you're sinking in the ocean. You're like, just keep swimming, but you can't. Your arms are tired. But we take you back there because we want to talk about, throughout this series and being centered on Christ, we want to look at tonight this idea of unity, okay? And we want to take you to this idea that we are one church, okay? And I don't just mean like First Baptist, although First Baptist is one church, but this big C church, that there is a global church of believers, that we all are part of the church that Jesus had wanted to institute, and so we are one in that, in Christ. That's kind of what we talked about Sunday morning when we were kind of leading into this talk. Okay, and we talk about that because there's the underlying narrative of the danger net story, besides like the most depressing fish you've ever seen that just all have the same facial expression. They're like, today's awful. Is that when they get trapped in the net, they're in like the greatest danger of their short fish lives. I don't know how long fish live, but I flushed a few of them to know like not very long. I've never flushed a big one though. That'd probably be bad for plumbing. But not very long, but they're in this panic moment, and then, Marlin. Marlin is the dad's name. underrated character. But in this moment, he is not Father of the Year because he lets, like his child fish, he's like, yeah, sure, swim into the mosh pit. Okay, that's terrifying in and of itself. But he lets them go in, and there's this moment where they all have to work together to accomplish a task, to escape a great, great danger. Okay, and as the church, we want to work together. Right? Faith Academy, you guys had a retreat last fall talking about unity. We've talked about unity even a little bit more this semester in here. Okay, and this idea that as one church we need to be unified is what we're going to see when we look into 1 Corinthians. And this idea that for the movie, that they need to be unified to escape great danger. Now here's the difference in the church, is that those that have chosen to follow Jesus, those that are saved, they have already escaped great danger. Christ has already won the war. Yet, when we are unified, we aren't saving ourselves, but rather we are inviting people along into the salvation of Christ, that they would escape great danger. That when the church works well together and is unified, then great things can happen. And people can meet Jesus, and we can grow together. But here's kind of the issue in that, is that we are like a super diverse people. Okay, so even if we go global church, like that's really diverse. Okay, we got people in countries that are going to get killed for following Jesus. Then we've got us where we can just like moderately be comfortable and sit in chairs and fall asleep and like still follow Jesus. Okay, it's like a very different world. Okay, so we've got these differences, but then there's just differences even in this room. Some of you go to Faith. Some of you go to Marble. Some of you are middle school students tonight. Some of you are homeschooled. So you come from all of these different educational backgrounds. Some of the adults in the room, some of us have no college. Some of us have lots, too much college. We're like, why did I ever go so long for a piece of paper? I'm not depressed at all. Anyway, side point. You'll never regret school. Yes, you will. So we come from all these educational backgrounds. We come from different family backgrounds. Some of us come from families of divorced parents. Some of us come from families where our parents have been married forever, and they're like, oh, we're like fifth grade sweethearts, and we met on the playground, and I punched her in the face, and it was true love at first bloody mouth. And we're like, well, that's a terrible story to tell at Christmas, Dad. He's like, oh, it's so good. We're like, Dad, why's your voice so high? He's like, puberty's hard. So some of us come from those backgrounds. Some of us come from backgrounds where maybe we never even knew one or both of our parents. Some of us come from backgrounds that even if our parents are together, maybe there's just like no joy in the home at all. And then some of us come from families that were like, we don't buy each other Christmas gifts, we make each other Christmas gifts because it's from the heart. And we read all of the Gospels at once to celebrate Jesus, and we're just like, done with you, okay? Some of us come from that kind of family. And so some of us come from different church background. Some of us in this room, we don't all go to First Baptist full time. Maybe we go to different churches on Sundays. Maybe we go to the Methodist Church. Maybe we go to Lake Shores. Maybe different denominational backgrounds. And so even then, we've kind of got different theological backgrounds, different faith tradition backgrounds. We might just see and believe things a little bit differently. Some of us are at different ages, right? We have middle schoolers in the room tonight and high schoolers. That's why I imagine you're all on the front row because you're like, there's a 7th grade boy. And the 7th grade boys are like, oh, dang it. I told them to pat dry before they came in. They were very concerned. It was good. Some of us come from different athletic backgrounds, right? Some of us, like anything flies in the air and we're just like Matrix style. The other thing, we can throw something right into your hands like full chess mode and you're dying. Like you're just like, ah! You turn into a duck. You can't catch with your wings. Some of us come from all these different backgrounds, and there are all these differences about us. And when we look at diversity, we look at it on a cultural scale, look at it on a global scale, it gets kind of exhausting. There's this tension in our country right now. Some of us are different genders, right? Some of us are different races. And so what comes with our skin color makes us perceive the world differently, makes the world perceive us differently sometimes. As a guy or as a girl, you perceive the world differently, you see things differently, you carry different emotions, and that's not to say that you can't be a strong woman, because you can, and that's not to say that you can't be a sensitive guy who wears skinny jeans, because eventually someone will marry you. It's all right, living proof, you're welcome. Not to say that you can't be those things, but you do see things differently. Your world is different. You live differently. And in the midst of so much diversity, it's hard to imagine great unity, okay? In the Nemo scene, we've got a bunch of old, sad, gray fish. They're like, oh, there's nothing better to do. Swim straight to the ground. We always look past the part where they face plant into the ground, and I'm like, that's at least 7 dead right there, right? But within the midst of all of this diversity, it gets exhausting. And it's exhausting in culture, because some of us, we say, okay, well, I don't really know what to do with this, right? Some generations before us have looked at things like race and said things like, well, God doesn't see color. And in their minds and in their hearts, it makes sense because they want to go, well, everybody's just the same. And at the foot of the cross, there is equality, but also there is diversity. And diversity makes us different. And generations before have tried to turn a blind eye to it. And now we're in the midst of a huge tension that we go, this is very, very real. And what do we do with it? What does it mean? What does it mean to love each other? What does it mean to respect each other? What does it mean to carry all these differences around? My mommy and daddy have been telling me my whole life that I'm unique, and now that kind of sounds like it sucks. Some of you feel very, very, very different. Even if it's not like you're walking down the halls, maybe nobody knows, but you just feel different. Your life is different, your world is different, you feel like no other teenagers are like you. There's huge differences. And they separate us, and they divide us. In the midst of the church, we have different preferences, right? We have 2 services at First Baptist, because some people love traditional music, and some people want a sweet guitar solo by George, whichever one we get, right? Some of us want to like raise our hands and dance in the aisle, and then some of us are like, that person's not making it into heaven. That's not me. I love to get my 2-step on in the aisle. I'm like, yeah, Jesus. That's not true. I would never do that because my wife would move a seat over and be like, he lost. All of these differences in the midst of Christianity and of the church, and we go, well, what in the world do we do with this? And then there's these differences. None of these are actually what we're going to come across in Corinthians, but we need to know them because we need to know what makes us different than each other, and that's okay. But the difference that comes across in the book of Corinthians has nothing to do really with race or gender or anything like that. But what we're going to see is the differences and the tension in 1 Corinthians is who they love, who they follow, who their pastor is. And so in the midst of ministry, at our church, we have lots of different pastors. We have Ross, who's our head pastor. He's the man. He's the jam. We've got Dory, who is literally the jam. Jam pastor is his title. He plays guitar. He's got a great beard, bald head. Well, he shaved some of his beard. Not as great anymore. Then we've got our kids pastor, Nicole, who's great and works with children. God bless her. Now I don't have to. Thanks, Karen. I appreciate you. That was creepy. And then there's me, who works with teenagers and makes weird jokes about killing you sometimes. Sometimes they're not a joke. And then there's guys like Norman. Yay! That was Norman's family. Boo! Oh my gosh. Listen, when I talk about myself, my wife just sits quietly. We talk about Karen's brother, and she's like, go, brother! He's awesome. I'm kicking you out. Now we've got discipleship pastor. We got Norman. And he's here to do great things to disciple our church, and it's going to be awesome. And so we have all these pastors who work in different areas and work with different people, and we all love people differently, and that can sometimes create tension. And then we've got the fact that some of us haven't even been here for very long. We've got Ryan Taylor, who is the jam. He's the man. He's got a way better beard than me, and he could sit on me, and it'd be terrifying. And in Ryan, I know, oh gosh. And in Ryan, we have a great youth minister. And now we have a new youth minister. And where I came from in Graham, I got to have a phone call this week with the guy who would be filling my position potentially. And talking with him. Because he calls and asks, hey, what was the church you worked at like? Calm down, bro. You need to cool off? And so we have that conversation. And going, okay, I'm not there anymore. I'm here, and you're going to be there. There's constantly a rotation of people in church staff. It's just the way church works. And Corinthians is sitting in the middle of that. And Corinthians is sitting in the middle of that because they're sitting aside and they're going, okay, I follow this guy, and I follow nobody else. And there's other guys going, okay, well, I follow this guy because your guy's dumb, and he smells funny. And he looks funny too. I'm just kidding. That's not in the text. Well, maybe the Message translation. They say, I'm going to follow this guy. And others go, you're spiritually shallow. We don't follow people. We follow Jesus. And the joke is they don't really follow Jesus. They're just trying to like overly Christian you. They're just trying to Bible beat people over the head. Like, we follow Jesus, heathens. Like, wait, what? I thought we were too. And we see this moment in Corinthians, and the report that is coming back to Paul, who's writing to the church at Corinth, is that things are greatly, greatly divided. And they could be divided over anything. They are divided over this one thing of who is their leader, but they could be divided over anything. We see that in town. We see different churches, denominationally. I've been a part of youth ministries that kids go back to their schools, and they go to a kid, and they're like, your youth ministry is awful. Boo your youth ministry. And we're like, whoa, that's not the goal. And you got all these weird tensions, and then we see this in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 10. After Paul kind of encourages his people, saying he thanks God for them, saying that they have spiritual gifts, saying they're doing great things, he says this in verse 10. He says, now I urge you, brothers and sisters, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree in what you say, that there be no divisions among you, and that you be united with the same understanding and the same conviction. For it has been reported to me about you, my brothers and sisters, by a member of Chloe's people, that there is rivalry among you. What I am saying is this: one of you says, I belong to Paul, or I belong to Apollos, or I belong to Cephas, who is Peter, or I belong to Christ. To which Paul answers them and says, is Christ divided? Was Paul crucified for you? Were you baptized in Paul's name? I thank God that I baptized none of you, except Crispus and Gaius, so that no one can say you were baptized in my name. Paul looks at this and he says, there's so much great division, and some of you say that you follow me, and some of you say that you follow Peter, and some of you say that you follow Apollos, who has come and pastored you, and Peter, who maybe has not come to pastor you, but you've heard the message of. And you look and you go, I follow him, and I follow him. And he goes, and it's not love for those people that you have. Your obsession with those people is creating division in your church. And those of you that say, oh, we're over that, we're above that, we follow Christ, he answers with this: is the body of Christ divided? Because to follow Christ is to be united. There is no division when Christ is at the center. When we put Christ at the center of our lives, we move forward in unity. We move forward in unity. Here's the trick to that. Sometimes we read passages like this and then we're like, no denominations, one giant church, everybody together. That's not what the passage is saying. When we look at this, there's a difference between diversity and division. See, in diversity looks at difference and it celebrates it. Because diversity looks at difference and says, those are different ways to reach the kingdom. Diversity is when white people look at African American people and we go, you can reach people differently than we can. And when African American people look at white people and they go, you can reach people differently than we can. And let's celebrate that. And when a man looks at a woman and goes, man, you can minister differently than I can. And a woman looks at a man and goes, man, you can minister differently than I can, because there's difference, because there's diversity. When the kid that's super just all out nerdy looks at the jock and goes, you can minister differently than I can, because I'm not going to be in the locker room. When the guy in the locker room can talk to the band kid and go, man, I'm so glad you're different. You can minister differently. And it looks at all of this, and it looks at diversity and it celebrates it. But sometimes diversity becomes division, because what happens then is that we look at diversity and we go, oh, I can preach and you can't. Move over to JV Christianity. I can play music and you can't. Move over. I'm an athlete and you're not. We can't work together. I follow this guy and he's better than your guy. Which is nuts. To inflate yourself based off someone else. And that's what the church at Corinth is doing. They're not expressing love for the person who pastored them. They're saying, I am better because I know that person than you. And Christ has no place in that. Christ has no place in division. He has a great place in diversity. He has no place in division. And so when we look at denominations, we look at those differences. We go, okay, you read this part of the Bible differently than I read. Can we settle on the fact that Jesus is Lord and that he's come to save us from sin? Yes, great. then we can be different churches and do different things and be called to different things and still move forward towards the gospel and love each other. Because there's peace in diversity. There's no peace in division. When we put Christ at the center, we have unity. Our differences in this room are pretty vast. A lot of us have a lot of different things in common. A lot of us come from different genders, different races. A lot of us enjoy different media outlets. A lot of us enjoy different sports. A major diversity in this room would be the schools that we go to. And we look and we go, okay, am I better because I attend a certain school? Or are we all moving forward for the sake of the gospel of Jesus Christ? Are we diverse or are we divided? Huge tension. Are you diverse or divided by age? We separate Wednesday nights and we teach and we preach. But do you love middle schoolers or do you hate middle schoolers? Middle schoolers, do you love high schoolers or do you hate them? Or do you fear them? Are you diverse or divided? Because if Christ is at the center, then you love each other. Because they're your brother or your sister. When we look at what it means to be centered on Christ, when we look at the church at Corinth, when we look at Paul's charge to the church at Corinth, he's very clear. If Christ is involved, there is unity. And there's no, well, but you don't understand about this person. If Christ is involved, there is unity. There is same mind, there is same heart. That doesn't mean we agree on everything, but it means that we are all in pursuit of sharing the gospel. And if we are divided and not in pursuit of sharing the gospel, then we're just wasting our time. Then we're just angry. And that's the church at Corinth. They get so caught up in comparing who is better, who they follow is better, and they forget that Jesus is better. And if they could just come around that, they could reach the city of Corinth. They could reach it. And it would be awesome. When I read this passage, you leave a church, it is like the weirdest thing of your life. You work with teenagers, you invest in teenagers, and then you move to where God has called you. And in leaving Graham to come here to love a new group of teenagers, which I do, you guys are stinking awesome, you're the best. And to talk with them and to converse with them and to hear stories from Backrack and go, well, so-and-so doesn't come anymore because you're not there. So-and-so refuses to come because it's not the same. And that's a lie. Because if Jesus was there and present in ministry, and he is still there and present in ministry, then it is the same. And he is still doing great work. And anywhere, if Jesus is there and pursuing the hearts of teenagers and adults and families for the sake of Christ, and he is still there, then we are still unified. We're still moving forward. We're still trusting Jesus. We're still sharing the gospel. No part of anything that we do for the next however many, I hope, 20 years that I'm here, 45 and doing youth ministry. Yeah, I'll figure it out. However many years, nothing we ever do will be about me or my family. Not one. And it won't be about you either. It'll be about the empty seat next to you. It'll be about the gospel of Jesus Christ in Marble Falls, Texas. And everything we do will be about that and pursuing forward, selfish ambition aside. And we can either be unified in it, public school, private school, home school, whatever race, guy, girl, middle school, high school, don't care. We can either be unified in it and do great things, or we can eat each other alive. Play gaga ball once a month. Woohoo! That youth ministry rocks. There's no peace in division, but there's peace in diversity. If we have Christ at the center, we will be unified, because at the cross of Jesus, Scripture tells us there is neither male nor female, there's neither Greek nor Jew. And that doesn't mean that none of those things matter. Those things matter. Diversity matters. But it does mean that Christ brings us together, that we can worship together, that we can serve together, that we can love together, that we can create community together. That at the cross of Jesus, we are equal and we can do great things together for the sake of our city. Great, powerful things. Not because we are powerful, but because God is powerful. Not because I am powerful, but because my God is powerful. We can do great things when we put our faith in Jesus, when we follow Jesus earnestly with all our hearts. And that's what we're going to talk about for the next 4 weeks. That when we follow Jesus, when we put him at the center, we will be unified. But none of the rest matters if we do not walk in unity. Here's why Citywide is so important. And it is a struggle for me. Believe it or not, I'm hard to work with. To come with other youth pastors and let's all get together and do something, because you get a bunch of egos in a room and we're like, but we want to do this thing. Well, we want to do this thing. Well, your thing's dumb. But the beauty of Citywide is that we come together as denominations, as Lakeshores, as First United Methodist, as First Assembly, and we say, man, for one weekend, we're going to set aside our differences and worship together. But more than that, we're going to come together because we know that when there's more of us, we can reach more people. And we can fill the empty seats. That is why Citywide is important, because we take a break from the other 51 weeks of the year and we become unified and we put Christ at the center. And we worship together and we come together in community and we come together as schools. And we trap ourselves in houses. And we have conversations and we learn about each other. And we play games together and we hang out. But more importantly than all of that is that we are no longer the ones in danger. We are no longer the ones in the net. We are not moving forward in unity to escape danger. We are inviting others in that they might escape danger like we have. We are encouraging them to move with us, and we are moving forward in unity to reach them, that they might know the salvation of Jesus Christ like we do, hoping that we do. And if you don't, Jesus is much bigger than sitting in comfortable chairs on Wednesday nights. Jesus is much bigger than Gaga Ball. Jesus is much bigger than basketball. He's bigger than all those things. He's bigger than subpar preaching. He's bigger than our worship. He's bigger than all those things. And if we walk forward in unity, he will do those things. But if we do not, we will waste every minute in this building. But if we do, every building outside of this one will change. Every school, every home in the city. George and Sherman are going to come up and lead us in worship. I'm going to pray for you guys. If you don't know that Jesus, my hope is that, I don't even care why you came tonight, but my hope is that you know a little bit more about Jesus than when you came in. And if you want to know more, to grab an adult and talk to them during this time of worship. But if nothing else, don't leave early. You're like, oh great, the credits are rolling. Worship in unity. The best part of worship is that it draws us from all of our other garbage and it makes us worship the King together. Father, tonight we love you and we trust you.